to GovGeeks Assemble. Level up your 9 to 5 on 95. I'm Javier, and I'm really excited to introduce our special guest today. So Riz Shah, I had a chance to hear a couple of his presentations at the recent Performance Institute's Government Performance Summit in 2022. It was very exciting. I was very thrilled, but you guys are just going to love this bio. I have to maybe take a couple of breaks, drink some water as I'm reading through it because he's got so many accomplishments here.
You're too kind.
So Riz Shah currently serves as the Organizational Culture Advisor at the U.S. Department of Energy. In this role, Riz provides direct consultation and assistance to appointee, federal, and contractor senior officials in their organizations on the assessment, management, development, and improvement of organizational culture, human resource training and development, human performance improvement, and high reliability organizations. And it's cool because not only is he doing this, but he does other great things as well. He also serves as the department's staff level liaison with other government, international, and professional organizations in all of these different areas. He provides authoritative advice on and is a champion for continuous improvement and promoting organizational performance and reliability. If that's not enough already, here's a little bit more. And by the way, everyone, I'm only reading like half of his bio.
I'm falling asleep.
There's just so much stuff. Well, with 28 years of experience, you've got such a wide breadth of knowledge and expertise that you developed. Riz, what haven't you done?
I don't know. I'm still working on it. I have lots of things to do still.
That's the spirit. Well, as I mentioned, we had a chance to meet first at the Performance Institute's Government Performance Summit. Had a great time at the show and everything. And thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show and share a little bit about your background experiences, but then also about the panels that you're on. So one of the first ones, creating an organizational culture and enabling for continuing performance. This was a really great discussion. I enjoyed a number of the different speakers that were there along with you. It wasn't just you doing the whole thing on your own. But what was that experience like for you?
You know, I will tell you, I think very highly of both Noah and Bethany. They're definitely thought leaders in the federal space, and they're intrinsically motivated to help improve our government. And I love meeting people who are passionate on that, right? There's things that we do from a governance perspective, which is the bureaucracy in itself, which bureaucracy, I say that as a good word, not a bad word, but it's the people that make it work. And the panel was focused around looking through a lens of performance improvement, meaning we're not looking through compliance, we're not looking for enforcement, we're not looking to check the block lists on what we need to do for the day, but it's really long-term strategic thinking on how all of our individual inputs can help improve the functions of our government. So that was an exciting panel to be on with those two.
Improve the long term. I mean, that's just great. Not only were you mentioning about intrinsic motivation, but also how this work contributes towards long-term improvement. So what you're saying is there is the possibility to work in government, be intrinsically motivated, and not just make an immediate impact, but have a long-term sustained impact.
Yeah, and what's really exciting, okay, so truth be told, I was recruited by the Department of Energy, and at that time, I was only applying to nonprofits. And one of my mentors gave my name to the DOE and said, hey, you should contact this guy. He's in transition and he might be interested. Initially, I said no. And I'm glad I said yes, because I realized that the work that federal employees do is critical. It is critical and essential to the functioning of our nation, right? So, and federal employees need to understand, and other people need to understand this, that the fact that that federal employee comes in and helps run the government, and the government is what's ensuring the long-term success and efficacy of our nation. So the little thing you may do as a Fed today that's for the good or for the bad could really have long-term impacts, which will survive through any transition of the political system.
That's beautiful.
And the feds are the backbone of the government. And that's an amazing thing to me.
On the backbone of the government, and the government is run by individual public servants that have the opportunity to serve the greater good.
They do. And, if I can point this out, we all take an oath of office, right? Is to solemnly swear or affirm to will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That oath, a lot of people don't realize, is verbatim the same as military officers. So think about that for a second. We thank our military people for their service.
Absolutely.
When was the last time you thanked the Fed for service?
Right? I do it all the time.
Yeah, I do too. And I also,
and all folks say all the time, though.
It is. And it's not the fact that I was in the Army and now I'm a federal employee. It's the umbrella of defending the Constitution is what makes those individual roles important, right? We're not allegiance to a person. It's an allegiance to an ideal of the Constitution that's ever evolving with what makes this nation great. And I think that is really cool. It really is. I stay in federal service because I know when I implement a program and I really dig deep into it, that it will outlast me by 20, 30, 50, 100 years possibly.
Yeah. That's good.
That real pure good that you can do for your country. It's amazing.
Yeah. And so for everyone watching, everyone listening, I mean, just listen to this idea that we have a chance as public servants to really shape something for the better, for something that outlives us 20, 30 years plus. I mean, it's such an encouraging opportunity. Of course, I think that also means that we have to have very intentional and well-intentioned people doing the work, qualified, ready to do this, ready to serve.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that's an important part of it is the recruiting, right? We want to bring on those folks that have the best intentions of our nation in mind. It's critical jobs. They're essential jobs. They're important jobs. There's no Amazon CEO who's going to have such a long-term impact on the entire country, right? They could affect their stores. They could affect their shipping. They can affect their bottom line. But they're not going to impact every single 50 state across the board by a single policy, that they support or help someone implement. So I think that's really important.
Wow, I'm going to let that one just set in.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
When you frame it like that, Javier, you really, you take a step back, you look at it from a certain lens, and then you step back even farther and you stand on the mountain and you look out the landscape of what is our country, and then you get up in the stratosphere. And you can see the role that we play as a nation. If you really ask yourself, what allows our nation to function efficiently and effectively, not just within our borders, but outside? It is literally you, federal employee, sitting out there. There's no one else who's picking up that mantle of leadership is on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And I take that seriously.
Well, I mean, that's the oath of office. That's the role and the responsibility that we're entrusted with. I mean, the public doesn't know all of the ins and the outs of the activities and the work that's done. We just assume that things are happening. But it's because of hardworking public servants that are out there that never really get a lot of notice, recognition, that are doing it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. And, obviously, we're not in it for the money, right?
Oh,
I think we've all established that, right? That whole part about will and faithfully discharge the duties, it goes back to, you said, having the right people in there, people who are faithful to the Constitution and really to the nation's good is really important. I want to talk a little bit about the bureaucracy, right? People are like, oh, the bureaucracy. But I think it's one of the things that makes our government great, right? We are a nation that operates on a 4-year election cycle, right? That's new administration coming in, a year to figure out, how everything works and get it going. 2 years, nose to the grind, pushing hard. Last year, working on re-election, next phase, elections, or wherever it's going to go. Well, who's providing that continuity? It's the bureaucracy. That's why I don't want you to think the bureaucracy is a bad word. Is the federal workforce provides that continuity, right? It is just imagine if entire agencies changed out every 4 years.
Yep.
That wouldn't work very well at all. So I think that's where it makes it even more important to understand that the roles we play. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, when a act is passed, when a law is passed, and there's something that needs to be implemented, clean air, clean water, the safety of the nation, regardless of what administration, those are still ongoing needs and requirements that the citizens have. And so there needs to be a group of dedicated people to continue to do this. And of course, career public servants are taking up the charge all the way from entry level through a senior executive.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, transitions sometimes can be rocky, but you know that foreign area officer in the State Department still needs to have that relationship in the country they're in.
Yep.
Department of Commerce still has to make sure that that washing machine that's labeled made in China is actually coming from China, or if I get the department right. Same with, Parks and Services and Department of Energy. We have to make sure that we're providing fuel for the nuclear reactors and the research is going on. And Department of Transportation needs to make sure that the oil is flowing. I don't know if a lot of people know that they're actually in charge of the fuel flowing across the country. But all these functions must continue to happen. And so then I'm going to bring it back to why I'm a champion of continuous improvement is these functions always happen, right? And it is on us, the federal workforce, to look for better ways to do it, because our bottom line is one, right? We owe it to the American taxpayer from a complacency perspective, and that's implementation of policies, right? That's a legal mission. We have to do that. But the bigger part of it also is do it in the most efficient way possible, right? If we're budgeted $100 million, well, let's see if we can do it for $900 million. I'll get my math right. $99 million, right? Is obviously I'm not in the Department of Mathematics, but
good.
You get my point, right? Or if you work in HR and you do onboarding, you look better ways of onboarding employees. Or if you do recruiting, how can we bring in the best and brightest? How can we continue to develop our leaders? That's all important. If you're in your organization's Office of Finance, have we implemented enterprise risk management? Are we bringing that on board? Are we engaging in employee engagement efforts? And there's so many levers that you can pull just within your agency to look at continuous improvement. And I think that's essential. And it should be part of every senior executive's in every GS employee's performance plan. I think that there should be ECQs that apply to every single federal employee across the board, from GS1 to SES, whatever levels they go up to.
Yeah, I mean, we're all public servants, and this is common amongst what we do. So absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm really hearing this, and I'm allowing some of it to set in a little bit more as well. But I'm curious for you, because we talked about like how systems and cultures can happen within the organization. If an individual was interested in establishing a little bit more for themselves and for the work that they're doing in government, what sort of pieces of advice would you have for them?
Okay, well, let's start off for themselves, right? Because that's where it starts, at the individual level, well before it becomes an organization. I think you have to become a learning person if you're not, or become a better learning person. My father taught me a long time ago, he said that no one can promote you more than yourself. And therefore you should never wait for someone to promote you. And that is a lot deeper saying than just promotions as moving up in grades. It's being involved with programs of more responsibility. I was not a big book reader when I was younger, and I really missed out. And so I played a catch-up game for a long time, and I'm more on the nerd side. I prefer nonfiction, right? Or I like to read about my work and my job, and sometimes some about ancient cultures. So
I'm totally with
the other thing
as well, man. I mean, got the comic books.
Oh yeah.
I got you.
No, I mean, so that's a part of it, right? The other part is engaging with people that challenge your assumptions. So like, for example, being on this panel, I promise you, if Noah disagreed with me or Bethany disagreed with me, they would say it. And that's what I love about those types of friendships is I wasn't just on a panel. Like, we've had conversations outside of just that panel, is people who challenge you in your assumptions, they challenge you to grow. So you're growing at the individual levels. And once you start growing, and then you'll start to look around you and you'll wonder, why isn't the people next to me growing? Or why isn't my organization growing? And then you'll start looking at opportunities from a group dynamics perspective of lifting up your whole program. But it really has to start with you, right? And that's so important, whether it's simply as filling out your individual development plan, or talking to your leadership, or there's absolutely nothing wrong with investing your own dollars in your own growth, right? That is so important. So I think the other part I would add to that is, so I help develop and deliver a transition course for veterans. It's one of the I have a lot of side gigs, which aren't part of my PD because I always have to stay doing stuff. And one of the things I teach people, veterans, because when they transition, there's a change of mission, a change of culture, is if you're not happy with your work life, then perhaps it's time to change your life's work, right? Is you can't, when you talk about personal growth, you can't just look at what you do from 8 to 4 or 9 to 5. It's how does it define you when you're doing other things? So like when I first transitioned, I felt I needed more. So I worked at a homeless shelter for, I think it was good 4 years, every Monday helping homeless veterans get job interviews, helping them write resumes, or learning basic skills on Office. And people are like, why is this senior GS employee working there? I'm like, because I need to. I can't just be me, right? But what I got out of it was my own personal growth. The altruism, the humility, the practice in teaching. I teach classes now on leadership development and change management and whatever else. So I think that's something I'd say put in your back pocket is, if you're not happy with your work life, then, look at your life's work. What are you doing for yourself? And that's a great place to start before you start looking at your organization. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm just like listening to the idea. That's almost something that, a person should get a tattoo of.
I know, right?
That's meaningful. And it's kind of like what you guys were talking about in terms of like a culture of continuing learning and improvement. It's not just like for you individually, but it's for everyone else that's involved as well. And
yeah,
when people come together and they contribute in that way, yeah, gosh, we can change cultures. We can change organizations and agencies and nations.
Yeah, it's either you're going to influence the culture or it's going to influence you. If you get in an organization which you're not happy and you're not going to put forth the effort to help bring about change, then you just have to accept it. Accept where you're at, accept your situation, and at least find peace with it. That's important. That's important, finding that inner peace. I worked hard at it, brother. I'll tell you what. And I'm not perfect. There's days that I'm a hot storm inside, right? No peace can be found. But the Zen is what I look for. My center, it's really important. And I tie in the spiritual, the physical, the emotional, and the intellectual. I look for all of those in my life to make sure there's balance there.
Yeah, I think having that balance certainly is something that's helpful, because no matter where you go, you have yourself. If it's at home, if it's the workplace, if there's issues, you are at least the common denominator for what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing to remember is I think a lot of people shortchange themselves. You have a lot more to offer than you think you do. And if you're not sure of it, then go write a resume. Or better yet, have somebody else write your resume. It's worth it, right? People are like, oh, I don't want to spend $200, $300 on somebody writing my resume. I just ask them, well, when the last time you went out to eat to a nice place, how much it cost you? Or if you add up all your Starbucks just for a week, how much did it cost you? So investing in yourself, it should be part of that indulgence. It's important. I'll share something. So I recently, about 2 weeks ago, started taking Pilates. Never done it in my life. And it is kicking my butt. It's that part of the spirituality, your mind and your body, right? It's two parts. It can't just be one. So I get my intellectual from all my crazy circle of friends of really crazy and cool, smart people. And then I get my physical challenges. Like I go on long walks and I force myself to be engaged in my environment. So yeah, that would be a part of finishing that conversation to me is that self-care, that self-love is really important. And it took me some time to get there. It was active, intentional is the word you used before, Javier. And that's a great word. It's on purpose. You have to do these things, but it can be possible.
Very much so. And I know you said, there are some days when, you're not there, you're just, but that's cool. All of us are at these different stages. And for what it's worth, man, it sounds like you've got more things together than even you realize.
I'm a work in progress till the day I die.
It's amazing. Like time has flown by so quickly in this conversation. I feel like the energy and the enthusiasm that you have, not only for public service, but your aspect towards life and your approach towards life is just so encouraging. Thanks,
Javier. And I'm going to show you something because this is where Javier and I connected when he logged on.
Yes.
Right. Except this is for military service that somebody gave to me.
Oh, that's nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
A very meaningful thing, right? How lucky is honestly the nation, the world, that as part of the transition, a friend of yours shared your resume with energy. And from there, things just can continue to grow. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. It's great. It's funny when Dewey first called me, I thought it was some kind of prank call. And I said, please don't take me off your call roster. Sure, Department of Energy is calling me because I had not reached out to them.
Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah.
Well, Riz, thank you so much. It looks like we're almost here in time. Sincerely, for what it's worth, thank you for your service, both in serving in the military, for your service in federal government. The work that you're doing is making a difference, and we're thankful for it.
Thanks, Javier. And thank you for putting together these podcasts and videocasts you do. I think they are great for making those connections and sharing. As a storytelling is, I think, the best way to share and learn.
Exactly. Yeah, there's plenty of public servants that are out there. There's plenty of folks within the GovGeekdom. So thank you all so much for watching and listening. We really appreciate your engagement. Find Riz on all of the great areas that we had identified earlier. Connect with others. And sincerely, thank you for your service as well. We look forward to seeing you next time.
All right. Take care.